On a cold December night in 1991 Los Angeles, an encounter between two rock legends at the Rainbow Bar on Sunset Strip would forever change not only the music world, but the lives of two men. That night, Ozzy Osbourne stood on the brink of a long-awaited reckoning. However, neither of them knew that this confrontation would end in tears and forge a lifelong friendship between them. Because sometimes the greatest battles between true rock stars become the beginning of the deepest friendships. This bar wasn't just a drinking establishment. Countless bands from Led Zeppelin to Motley Crue had gathered here. Deals had been made, fights had broken out, friendships had been forged. This evening would be no different. When Ozzy arrived at the Rainbow Bar that night, months of accumulated rage blazed in his eyes. The 46-year-old rock legend had his black leather jacket tightly zipped, his long black hair slicked back, carrying in every step the authority that years of stage experience had given him. But this time was different. This time he wasn't coming to battle just for his own music, but for the dignity of an entire generation. The recent interview from Guns N' Roses' young and rebellious leader Axl Rose echoed in his ears. "Ozzy's time is over. He should retire now. We're the new generation. Kids listening to Welcome to the Jungle find Paranoid outdated." These words had stirred up not only Ozzy, but the entire heavy metal world. As one of Black Sabbath's founders, Ozzy had laid the foundations of rock music, had been instrumental in the birth of heavy metal, had paved the way that even enabled Axl's existence. In the 1970s, he had emerged from Birmingham's working-class neighborhoods to become a worldwide phenomenon. But now this young, arrogant kid was challenging him. This matter will be settled tonight, Ozzy had thought, ordering whiskey at the bar and waiting for Axl. From his table in the corner of the bar, ghosts of the past danced in Ozzy's mind. He remembered the early days of Black Sabbath, which he had founded in 1970 with Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward. Back then, they too were young, hungry, and ready to challenge the world. They stood against Deep Purple, against Led Zeppelin, trying to create heavier, darker music. He was only 22 when they wrote Iron Man. Now he was the one under attack. But perhaps what hurt most was the possibility that Axl might be right. Maybe his time really had passed. Maybe he should step aside for the new generation. These thoughts were driving him mad. He had dedicated his life to this music, overcome countless obstacles throughout his career, battled alcohol and drug addiction, and nearly returned from death's door. And now a 26-year-old kid was telling him to retire. When Axl Rose walked through the door, the regulars at Rainbow Bar felt the tension. His long red hair cascaded over his shoulders, and with his tight black pants and leather jacket, he had the typical rock star appearance. But the determination in his eyes showed that something was going to happen this evening. Axl channeled the rage he'd carried since childhood, his difficult past, the rebellion of a boy who grew up without a father, into every stage performance. He could create ballads like November Rain alongside hard tracks like Welcome to the Jungle. When he spotted Ozzy sitting in the corner, a small smirk appeared on his lips. "So he came," he muttered to himself. He had been expecting this confrontation. He made eye contact with the bartender and said curtly, "Jack Daniels straight." The bartender, sensing the tension in the atmosphere, quickly filled the glass. Axl, holding the glass in his hand, walked slowly toward Ozzy's table. There was a 20-year age gap between them, but both were equally stubborn, proud, and unwilling to compromise. Axl had been rebelling against authority figures since childhood, first against his father, then his teachers, and now he was fighting against the generation before him. But this time, there wasn't just any authority figure across from him. Before him stood one of rock history's most influential names. "Ozzy," said Axl, sitting across the table, challenge evident in his voice. "Axl," Ozzy replied, his voice ice cold, his eyes locked onto Axl's. "So I hear you've been looking for me," said Axl, taking a sip from his Jack Daniels. His confident demeanor made it seem like he wasn't afraid of this confrontation at all, but his inner tension was evident from the slight trembling of his hands. "Yes, I'm looking for you, little boy," Ozzy replied, his Birmingham accent thickened with anger. "I want to know what you meant in that interview, so my time is up." As Ozzy's voice rose, other conversations in the bar stopped. Everyone was watching these two legends. Axl shrugged, as if nothing they were discussing mattered, but this attitude was actually his defense mechanism. "I just told the truth. When you wrote Crazy Train, I was still a child. I was born in 1980, But now the new generation has arrived. There are new voices. When you hear, "Welcome to the jungle," you'll understand what I mean. These words were the last straw that broke Ozzy's patience. He stood up from the table, hands clenched into fists, the old fire that had captivated audiences for years blazing in his eyes. "Who are you to tell me my time is up?" he shouted. "When I wrote Paranoid, I changed world music. With Iron Man, I laid the foundations of heavy metal. I was on stage before you were even born." The other customers in the bar noticed the situation and silence fell. Even the bartender put down the glass he was holding and started watching them. Axl also stood up, accepting Ozzy's challenge. "Yes, you're a great legend, Ozzy. I don't deny that. But the past stays in the past. Now it's our time." Guns N' Roses released the Use Your Illusion albums last year. The world is talking about our music now. The two stood face to face like gladiators. But at that moment, something unexpected happened. In Ozzy's eyes, beneath the anger, something else emerged. Disappointment, deep exhaustion, and perhaps a bit of fear. Years of ongoing battles, alcohol and drug problems, constant pressure to prove himself, relentless media criticism, it all hit him in the face at once. The difficult periods in his marriage with Sharon, moments when his children might feel ashamed of their father, nights when he stayed awake wondering if his career had come to an end. "You know what, Axl," he said, his voice trembling as he sat back down. "When I was your age, I thought the same way. I thought Robert Plant's and Jimmy Page's time was over. I found them old, outdated." He placed his hands on the table, his eyes meeting Axl's. "But now I understand that music isn't a race. You can't defeat me, and I can't defeat you, because we were both born from the same fire." This sudden change completely stunned Axl. He had expected aggressive reactions, shouting, maybe even a physical fight. But before him sat an older yet wise warrior sharing his emotions. Axl suddenly remembered his own childhood. Since the day he was born as William Bruce Rose Jr., he had always been fighting. Problems with his mother, bullying at school, his stepfather's violence. He had been forced to fight against everything, and now he had declared war on Ozzy too. But why? Did he really believe his time was over, or was he projecting his own insecurity? Why are you talking like this?" said Axl, the aggression gone from his voice. "I was expecting to fight with you." Ozzy caught a bitter smile at the corner of his lips. "Because I see in you now the same mistakes I made at your age." "Listen to me, Axl," Ozzy continued, wisdom in his voice, a maturity born from years of suffering. "You're now the leader of the world's biggest rock band. Sweet Child O' Mine is a fantastic song. I admit that. I admit I was impressed when I first heard Slash's guitar solo. But know that this won't last forever. One day, you'll be in my place too. Some youth will try to put you out to pasture." Axl nodded, looking at this issue from a different angle for the first time. There was truth in Ozzy's words. There were tensions even among Guns N' Roses members. The disagreements between him and Slash, concerns about the band's future. Maybe he too would be in the same situation one day. "So why did you say those things in that interview?" asked Ozzy, his voice softened, no longer aggressive. Axl took a deep breath, taking another sip from his glass to buy time. "Because I'm scared," said Axl, perhaps making the most honest confession of his life. "I'm scared every day when I'm compared to you. The media constantly compares me to you. They call me the new Ozzy, young Ozzy. You're a legend, and I'm just a crazy traumatized kid from Indiana. Sometimes when I go on stage, I think, do these people really love me, or are they just expecting a show? You've been in this business for years, experienced, you've lived through everything. But I'm trying to prove myself every single day." His eyes were welling up, but he was trying to hold back the tears. "And maybe the reason I attacked you in that interview was because I was trying to convince myself that I was ready to take your place." This confession became a turning point for both of them. Ozzy understood that behind Axl's aggression lay insecurity and fear. Axl realized that Ozzy wasn't just a rival, but also a pioneer, a teacher. "Axl, don't you know?" said Ozzy, affection evident in his tone, as if he were talking to his own son. "I experienced the same fears when I was your age. As the child of a working-class family in Birmingham, while my father worked in a factory, I didn't know how I could become a rock star. I dropped out of school and worked in a butcher shop. Then we formed Black Sabbath, but even then there was constant pressure to prove myself. but music saved me, just like it saved you." Tears began to gather in Axl's eyes. He felt that he could show this man the vulnerability he hadn't shown anyone in years. Everyone has expectations of me. The future of the band is on my shoulders. My fans are looking at me. The company is constantly pressuring me. Sometimes I think I can't handle it." Ozzy reached across the table and placed his hand on Axl's shoulder. This touch was deeply meaningful for Axl, who had never been loved by his father. "Son, you don't have to carry this burden alone," said Ozzy in a fatherly voice. "Look, I fought alone for years. Alcohol, drugs, depression, suicidal thoughts. I tried to battle all of them by myself. But in the end, I understood that being strong doesn't mean not asking for help." These words opened up a completely different world for Axl. No one had ever talked to him like this before. Everyone had always expected him to be strong, to be a leader, to never show weakness. "How did you make it through?" asked Axl, his voice almost a whisper, as if he were trying to learn a sacred secret. "With Sharon's help," said Ozzy, smiling. "My wife saved me, and I learned to keep the right people around me. You can do the same." For the rest of that night, the two talked until morning. Other customers at the Rainbow Bar came and went, but they remained at the same table, sharing their stories like two old warriors. Axl told in detail about his childhood traumas, his father abandoning him, the problems in his mother's new marriages, the physical and psychological violence Stephen Bailey inflicted on him. "When I first discovered music," said Axl, "it was like I had found a way to channel all that rage and pain somewhere. From Queen to Elton John, from Led Zeppelin to, of course, your music, all of it nourished me." Ozzy shared his youthful poverty, his first musical experiences, and the founding story of Black Sabbath. "When I met Tony Iommi in 1968, we were both unemployed. I had no money, but we had passion for music. There wasn't even a term called heavy metal back then." The ice between the two had begun to melt, rivalry giving way to mutual respect. "Axl," said Ozzy at the end of the night, when the clock was showing nearly 4 a.m. "If you want, I can teach you some things. How to stay in this business for a long time, how to stay standing, how to protect yourself from the media games." Axl immediately nodded. "I would love that, Ozzy. I really would." In the following weeks, the two began meeting frequently. Ozzy gave Axl advice on many topics, from stage performance to studio work, from fan relations to media management. "When you go on stage," he would say, "never be fake. People immediately notice dishonesty. Always be genuine. Reflect what you feel." Axl, in turn, told Ozzy about new generation music technologies and young people's expectations. "MTV is very important now," Axl would say. "Music videos, image, these are much more critical than before, but you already use these very well." One day, while spending time together in Ozzy's home studio, Axl noticed something. Ozzy was working on new songs, and the melodies were fantastic. "Ozzy, you can still write amazing songs. Why do you feel like you're retired?" he asked. Ozzy shrugged. "Maybe because of the constant pressure to stay young. But you're right, music isn't about age, it's about soul." After this conversation, Ozzy began to feel more energetic. Seeing himself through Axl's eyes had given him a new perspective. "You know," he said one day, "you remind me of my youth, but not just the crazy parts, the hopeful parts too." Axl had smiled. "And you show me what kind of person I can be when I grow up, and I don't feel afraid anymore." As the months passed, the bond between them strengthened. Axl shared his personal problems with Ozzy and sought his advice. Ozzy, thanks to Axl's energy and passion, rediscovered his love for music. The two spent time together in the studio, talking about music for hours. Sometimes they would just sit quietly and listen to classic rock songs, sharing the story of each one. "Music isn't just about sounds," Ozzy would say. "Music is the art of storytelling, and your story is very powerful." In the fall of 1992, an unexpected surprise occurred at Guns N' Roses' concert at the Los Angeles Forum. When Axl took the stage, he turned to the crowd of 18,000 and said into the microphone, "Tonight we have a very special guest, a man who taught me that rock and roll isn't just music, it's a philosophy of life, a man I see as my own father, Ozzy Osbourne." The crowd went wild, giving a standing ovation. When Ozzy came on stage, Axl hugged him, this embrace witnessed by thousands. "This man," Axl said into the microphone, "taught me that music isn't just sound, it's soul. And he gave me the greatest lesson. Being a true rock star isn't about crushing others, it's about lifting them up." The two performed a medley of Crazy Train and Welcome to the Jungle together. The stage was electric. Two generations had come together. It was one of the most beautiful moments in music history. After the concert, backstage, Sharon Osbourne also hugged Axl. "Thank you," she said with tears in her eyes. "You made Ozzy so happy. I hadn't seen him this energetic in months. You're very special to him now." This friendship continued for years, both leaving permanent marks on each other's lives. Axl would call Ozzy during difficult times, seeking advice. Ozzy would be curious about Axl's ideas on new projects and share them with him. Both had understood that the music world wasn't a battlefield, but a field where they could grow together. "You know," Axl said one day, "I'm still ashamed of the things I said to you that first night." Ozzy laughed. "No, don't be ashamed, because that night we both learned from each other. You taught me youthful passion, I taught you the wisdom of experience." Axl nodded. "And now we're both better musicians, better people." This friendship became a beautiful example of intergenerational respect in the rock world. And those two men who began as enemies on that cold December night had forged a brotherhood that would last forever. Years later, when they told this story in interviews, they both said the same thing. Sometimes your greatest enemies can become your best friends. You just need to find the courage to understand each other, and music is a universal language that can transcend all differences, ages, and egos.